December 29, 1944, Supreme Headquarters, Versailles. General Dwight D. Eisenhower sits at his desk, reading a message from Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery for the third time. It isn't a battlefield report, and it isn't a request for reinforcements. It's a challenge. Montgomery is arguing that the Allied command system isn't working, and that one ground commander should direct operations across Northwest Europe. The implication is unmistakable. Eisenhower's authority as Supreme Commander is being questioned. In the middle of a world war, Allied unity itself is suddenly under strain. This is the moment Eisenhower decides the line has been reached. From here on, the question is simple: who is actually in command? To understand how serious this was, you have to understand Eisenhower's position. He wasn't just another general. He was the supreme commander of all Allied forces in Western Europe, American, British, Canadian, and more. His authority was the glue holding a coalition of proud, competitive nations together. Montgomery's message wasn't about tactics. It wasn't about a single battle. He was arguing that the entire Allied command system was unworkable, and that there needed to be one single ground commander coordinating operations from Switzerland to the North Sea. That commander, of course, would be him. And if Eisenhower didn't agree, Montgomery was prepared to take the issue to political leaders and force the change from above. This wasn't professional disagreement. It was a direct challenge to Eisenhower's authority. And if Eisenhower backed down, every Allied commander would know the truth. The Supreme Commander didn't really command at all. Eisenhower had dealt with Montgomery's challenges before. He had absorbed criticism, smoothed over disputes, made compromises to keep British and American commanders working together. Because for Eisenhower, the alliance always came first. But this telegram was different. This wasn't a complaint about strategy or supply. It was an attempt to go around him, to use political pressure to strip authority from the Supreme Commander in the middle of a campaign. Eisenhower read the message again. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the winter light hung over Versailles. Inside, the future of Allied command hung in the balance. Because Eisenhower understood something immediately. If he let this pass, if he treated this like just another disagreement, his authority would never recover. Every general in Europe would know Montgomery could challenge him and survive. Every decision would become a negotiation. Unified command would become an illusion. So Eisenhower did something he had avoided for months. He stopped trying to manage Montgomery and decided to confront the crisis directly. He called in his chief of staff, Walter Bedell Smith, and prepared to take the fight to the highest level of Allied leadership. Not over tactics, not over personality, but over one question: who was actually in command of the Allied war in Europe? Eisenhower didn't fire off an angry reply to Montgomery. Instead, he escalated the crisis. A message went to Washington outlining exactly what had happened: Montgomery's demand for control of all Allied ground forces, and his threat to go around the Supreme Commander if he didn't get his way. Between the lines, the meaning was unmistakable. This situation couldn't continue. Either Montgomery accepted Eisenhower's authority, or Eisenhower could no longer effectively command. When the message reached General George Marshall, the U.S. Army Chief of Staff, the issue became crystal clear. This wasn't just a personality clash. It was a challenge to American command authority in a theater where the United States now provided the majority of men, equipment, and logistics. The response from Washington was firm and unified. Eisenhower would remain Supreme Commander, his authority would not be negotiated, and the United States would not allow its senior commander in Europe to be undermined, no matter how famous or respected the challenger was. The balance of power in the crisis had just shifted. Montgomery thought he was applying pressure, but now the full weight of the American war effort was behind Eisenhower. When word of the crisis reached London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill immediately understood the stakes. This wasn't just a dispute between generals. It was a confrontation that could fracture the Allied command structure at the worst possible moment. By late 1944, the balance inside the alliance had shifted dramatically. American divisions in Europe now outnumbered British and Canadian forces. American industry supplied the bulk of weapons, vehicles, fuel, and ammunition. American logistics sustained the entire campaign. Churchill knew a hard truth. Britain could not afford a showdown with the United States over who commanded the Allied armies. However brilliant Montgomery was, however proud Britain's military tradition, the alliance depended on cooperation with Washington, and that meant respecting Eisenhower's authority. So Churchill made the only decision that preserved the bigger picture. Montgomery would not press his demand. The message from London was clear. Even if it was delivered diplomatically, back down. Montgomery had believed his reputation and influence gave him leverage. Now he was discovering where the real leverage in the alliance actually lay. Once the political reality became clear, Montgomery moved quickly. The demand for overall command had disappeared. The threats to go over Eisenhower's head vanished. In their place came a far more conciliatory message. Montgomery reaffirmed his loyalty to Eisenhower as Supreme Commander. He expressed full support for the existing command structure. He made it clear he would serve under Eisenhower's authority. The crisis that had threatened to shake the Allied High Command was suddenly over. But the reversal told its own story. Just days earlier, Montgomery had tried to force a restructuring of Allied command in his favor. Now he was emphasizing cooperation and unity. The balance of power had been clarified. Montgomery had tested the limits of the system and discovered that when pushed to the brink, the alliance would close ranks behind Eisenhower. The confrontation on December 29, 1944 wasn't about a single battle, a single plan, or a single personality. It was about something more fundamental. Who actually held authority inside the most powerful military coalition in history? Until this moment, Eisenhower had led largely through patience, compromise, and diplomacy. He had tolerated friction, absorbed criticism, and bent when he could, all to keep the alliance functioning smoothly. But Montgomery's ultimatum forced a different kind of leadership. If Eisenhower had backed down, the idea of unified command would have been permanently weakened. Every major decision would have been open to political maneuvering. Every disagreement would have become a national power struggle. Instead, Eisenhower drew a line. He didn't lash out publicly, he didn't humiliate his subordinate. He simply made it clear, at the highest level, that the Supreme Commander had to have real authority or the system would not work. The result wasn't the collapse of the alliance, it was the opposite. After the crisis, no Allied commander seriously questioned Eisenhower's command again. The rules were understood. The structure was settled. And as the Allies pushed into Germany in 1945, they did so under a command system that had just survived its most dangerous internal test. Sometimes the hardest decision in a coalition isn't about defeating the enemy. It's about standing firm with an ally who's forgotten who's in charge. On December 29, 1944, Eisenhower did exactly that, and the alliance was stronger for it.